Hey guys, this is Dr. John from Life Church at Ardsley Park, and I'm excited because it's that time of day where we're going to take about 2 minutes to look at another unique perspective of the Easter story. Now, if you're new to us, feel free to check back at the videos that we posted earlier this week to catch up on our story. But today we're going to look at the perspective of a meal. Now, I do want to let you know that we're probably going to be here a little bit more than 2 minutes because there is a lot to pack in today. And that's because this isn't just any meal, we're talking about the Passover meal. Now, the Passover meal was designed to remind the Israelites of how God had brought them out of bondage and slavery in Egypt and into the Promised Land. But as Jesus and his disciples gathered together that night, there was a special significance to this meal because Jesus was just about to create a way for all people to come out of bondage and sin and into a right relationship with God. Luke chapter 22 verses 14 and 15 say this: "When the hour came, he reclined at the table, and the apostles with him. Then he said to them, 'I have fervently desired to eat this Passover meal with you before I suffer.'" Now, one important thing to know about the Passover meal is that it wasn't an ordinary meal because it had a lot of ceremony in the meal to describe the story of what God had done. And so when Jesus and his disciples were gathered together that night, they would have been following a set course of what that meal was supposed to look like. And a lot of that meal was surrounding 4 cups, and each cup represented a promise of God. Now, for sake of time, we're not going to go into all the details of the meal, but I do want to tell you about those 4 cups. Now, the first cup was right at the beginning of the meal, and it represented a promise of God found in Exodus 6:6, which says, "I am the Lord and will bring you out of the burdens of the Egyptians." And so remembering that promise, they would have drank the first cup. Now, later in the meal, they would have had the second cup. And the second cup represented another promise out of Exodus 6:6, which says, "I will deliver you from slavery." And this was a joyous cup, a cup of celebration about what God had done for the Israelites. But there was also a sense of sorrow with this cup because there was a reminder that there was a great cost to the joy of this cup. And that was that God had put 10 plagues on Egypt as he brought them out of slavery. And so the Israelites would have dipped their finger into the glass like this and taken 10 drops out to represent the sorrow of the plagues of Egypt before they drank of the second glass, remembering that God delivered them from slavery. Now, between the second and third cup, Jesus did something unusual. See, at this point in the meal, he was supposed to bless the matzah bread. And when he picked it up to bless it, he took it and he broke it. But then he said, "This is my body, which is broken for you." Now, his disciples didn't fully understand what Jesus meant by that yet. But Jesus was saying that he was going to be the substance of this redemption meal. Next, there would have been more ceremony in the actual meal before they would have taken the third cup. Now, the third cup represented another promise from Exodus 6:6, which says, "I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and great acts of judgment." And it's with this cup the third cup, that Jesus did something unusual. You see, he lifted it up before his disciples and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." And he invited them to take this cup in remembrance of him. So, if you've been to church and taken something called the Lord's Supper or communion, it's important to know that it's not just any bread or any cup. It's this bread and this cup. That Jesus is the substance of our redemption. And that with a great act of judgment, Jesus purchased our salvation through the gift on the cross. Now, I mentioned that there are actually 4 cups, but interestingly enough, Jesus and his disciples didn't take the 4th cup. Jesus actually said that he wasn't going to drink another cup until all things were completed. So what was the 4th cup anyway? Well, Exodus 6:7 give us that final promise. And it says, "I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God." And so later that night, Jesus goes into a garden and he's praying. And he says, "Father, if there is any other way, let this cup pass from me. But not my will, but your will be done." See, as Jesus prayed that prayer, he was talking about the 4th cup. That when Jesus went to the cross, he completed redemption. He completed the cups because of his gift of salvation on the cross. So what do we do with this? Well, this Easter week, I know that we can't all be together, but I want to encourage you to consider taking the Lord's Supper where you are. As yourself or with your family, find some crackers, find some juice, and take the Lord's Supper remembering these 4 cups. That Jesus gave himself for you to complete the act of redemption on your behalf. I hope that this has been encouraging to you. And if it has, I want to remind you to like this video, tag a friend, and share it, because it might be an encouragement to someone else as well. And we'll see you tomorrow with another Easter perspective.